Welcome to video number 4 of 6. In this video we're going to be reviewing operations. I will cover some basic knowledge. There will then be a selection of multiple choice and longer answer questions. The idea is, when we get to the questions, you will pause the video to answer before looking at the mark scheme and any commentary that I make. Let's start by looking at the topic of production processes. Basically, this means the different stages of production that a product goes through from idea to when it gets to the customer. Within OCR's specification, you need to understand 3 different types of production process. They are job, batch, and flow. Job is when a product is made one at a time. These could be artisanal products where they are made specifically to the needs of the customer. Job production will often involve high levels of skill, which means they can be expensive on a unit basis. However, with job production, you get a greater degree of flexibility because often the products can be made specific to the user's needs. Batch promotion is when you make a number of identical products in any one go. The most obvious idea here is in the bakery, where they would make a number of Chelsea buns before baking them, and then the next batch of products they would make could be loaves of white bread. The idea of batch production means that you are saving some costs because you are not having to swap and change on a one individual product basis. Flow production can also be called mass production, and this is where you are making thousands of identical products, often continuously on one long production line. This method is very efficient, uses high levels of machinery, but you lose the flexibility from both the batch and the job production methods. When businesses are deciding which production process is best, it's going to depend on a lot of factors. One of the big ones is going to be the demand for the product. But then you've got to think about competition and quality, as well as the overall cost. Quality of goods and services refers to how good a product is. Does it meet customers' expectations? Are customers happy? There are different methods that businesses can use to make sure that the product is of a good quality. The 2 that you really need to focus on are quality control and quality assurance. Quality control is where a product is made, and at the end of that process, it is checked before it goes off to the consumer. Quality assurance means that the product is checked at every stage of the production before it goes to the consumer. Now, you might have spotted the problem with quality control. If there's a problem at the very beginning of the production process, quality assurance will pick it up and stop that particular product going any further. Quality control won't. So that product will have spent a lot of time going through lots of different processes before it eventually gets picked and sent back to the beginning. You'd think, well, why doesn't every business do quality assurance then? There are costs involved, and you have to always think about the different product and what is the suitable type of quality checking. Now, there are laws in place to protect consumers from getting dodgy products, faulty products, and that is why it's important for businesses to have quality checks in place to avoid consumers having to take some form of action. But even aside from that, poor quality products can affect a firm's reputation, and it is better to deal with those problems before you're having to deal with customers' complaints and refunds. Aside from doing checking within the business, businesses can use different methods to find out about the perceived quality of their products. They could survey customers to find out what they think. That information can then be used to make improvements in the production process, to maybe change the quality checking, to provide training for employees. Maybe customers want better materials being used in their products to make them more robust. All of these things need to be considered. However, the business needs to balance cost and quality. It might be nice to have the highest quality metal, the highest quality glass in your products, but in terms of the price, that might not be something which is reasonable for your business to be able to produce. Let's move on to look at the sales process and customer service. The sales process is the number of steps it takes from the customer first being contacted through the sale happening and any after sale communication to happen. It breaks down into different steps. First of all is lead generation, where you're identifying different customers who might be interested in your product or service. Once that happens, initial contact is made. Could be through cold calling, could be a face-to-face meeting at a trade show. You then identify what that customer needs, and can your business meet those needs with the product or service that it has. You then present your product to the customer, highlighting its features and how that product can meet their needs. Negotiation could involve discussions over price, delivery, may even be certain features which need to be added. You end up with closing the sale if the customer is happy and agrees to buy that product. And then finally, you have after sales. And that is anything from installing the product through to dealing with any complaints or issues on how to operate it. Now, clearly, not all sales go through that same process. That was very much focused on a particular type of sale. You don't have the same process when you nip down to the co-op to buy yourself lunch. Dealing with customers in a positive manner is really important for anyone within a business. When we're talking about sales, it is vitally important. You need to build trust, which hopefully will build loyalty. Loyalty could lead to repeat purchase. Loyalty could lead to positive word of mouth, or lead to not bad mouthing your product. Responding to customers' needs in a happy and courteous manner is good customer service. It could become part of the unique selling point for a business where you are setting yourself up as different or better than your competitors. And that can be more important in some cases than price. I mentioned briefly earlier that there are laws in place to protect people from faulty goods. The main law in the UK currently is the Consumer Rights Act. This act was introduced in 2015 and replaced several different acts that had been in situation for 20 plus years. Within the Consumer Rights Act, there are three key factors which businesses need to remember. Firstly, goods must be fit for purpose. Goods must match the description and they should be of a satisfactory quality. If you do have any faulty goods, you are able to demand a refund or a replacement for those products. There are other laws which are still in place to protect consumers, but the key one is for you to remember the Consumer Rights Act and your rights for a replacement or a refund. As I said previously, there are other laws that protect consumers. One of the key things to focus on is competition law. In the UK, we believe that competition between businesses is best for the consumer. It encouraged them to keep prices low, to keep innovating, to come up with better products and better ideas. Businesses are not allowed to come together and make secret deals on fixing prices, on sharing up the country geographically so they don't have to compete. This is illegal. And if businesses are found to be breaking those laws, they could find themselves facing legal action, which could involve fines or, in the worst case scenario, even jail time. Possibly even worse than that is the damage to the business's reputation. And if the business's reputation is damaged too far, it might never be able to fully recover the position it had before. On the other hand, providing excellent customer service that goes beyond customers' expectations, that more than matches the legal requirements, will enhance that business's reputation, and in theory would mean that customers are going to pick that business over others. The next factor we need to discuss is location. Now, location can be a physical location or it can be online. You always need to think about what is the context of the business that you are provided. Some business examples might have both physical and online operations. There are lots of factors which dictate where a business is going to be located. It could be relation to where the raw materials are. For example, if you are importing bulky goods from abroad, it might be a good idea to locate your processing factories close to the ports where those goods arrive. If you need a large labour market, maybe locating close to large towns or cities might be a good place for you to decide to place your factory. Is being close to your customers important? If you have got, for example, products which have got a short shelf life, so for example, Greggs, they need to be in the high street. Some businesses might need to consider costs. Locating in the high street or close to where there is a large amount of customers can be more expensive. Maybe a business can't afford to locate there. Sometimes you might want to think about the availability of skilled workers as opposed to just general numbers of workers. For example, in Birmingham, there is a lot of jewellery manufacturers, and they are there because there are lots of skilled workers that work in the industry. So locating there gives the companies a wider pool of people with the right talent that they need for their jobs. Many businesses operate globally. They are called multinationals. The reason why multinationals are in different countries could be manifold. Firstly, they could be looking for new markets. They might have a mature market in their country of origin and they want to try and find new customers. Other reasons could be for manufacturing. They might find that the labour costs are too expensive in their country of origin, so they create a factory elsewhere where there are cheap labour. Sometimes they might need to locate because of raw materials. If they decide to take control of the supply chain through some sort of vertical integration, merger or takeover, they might find themselves with factories or businesses around the globe. Other times it might be due to tax. For example, within Europe, Southern Ireland has the cheapest corporation tax, and that means you will find lots of businesses having their headquarters in and around Dublin to benefit from better tax rules. One of the key things for any business's success is to have a good relationship with the suppliers. Suppliers would be providing the raw materials or part components that you need to make sure your product can be produced and delivered to your customers on time. Therefore, it is important to pick your supplier carefully. Are they reliable? Is the price acceptable? Is the quality acceptable? Communication between suppliers and customers is really important to maintaining a good relationship. If you don't have a good relationship and you've picked a poor supplier, that can lead to delays within your own factory. It could lead to quality problems with your own product. That is going to lead to a poor reputation and bad customer feedback. It could also cause problems with the supplier itself, arguments over contracts, disruptions, termination of the agreement that can actually cause your business to stop being able to produce the products. You need to be aware as well of ethics and sustainability within your supply chain. You might claim to be an ethical business, but do you know if your supplier has the same ideals as you do? Picking ones that match your expectations and the expectations of your customer is going to enhance your reputation. One of the ways that supplier and customer relationships has been enhanced is the increased use of technology. Automated ordering when stocks get low has enabled systems to be faster and more efficient. It can often mean that the computer has ordered the product that you need before the people working in the factory have realized that they need those new products. It's time now to look at some questions. So we'll start off with some multiple choice questions from section A. Please remember the idea of this is that you look at the question, you answer it, and then you check if you had got your answer right. So the first question, a customer comes into a travel agency to book a holiday to Australia. An assistant serves the customer. Which of the following is this an example of? A. Face-to-face selling. B. International branding. C. Sales promotion. Or D. Telesales. Going into a travel agent and booking a holiday is an example of face-to-face selling. Consumer law requires shops to sell goods that are A. Environmentally friendly, B. Of satisfactory quality, C. Reasonably priced, or D. Unique. Consumer law requires shops to sell goods which are of satisfactory quality. Otherwise, you are entitled to a repair or a replacement or a refund. Choosing which supplier to use is a marketing decision, a pricing decision, a procurement decision, or a sales decision. Choosing which supplier to use is a procurement decision. If you haven't revised this topic, procurement means purchasing. A supermarket decides to extend its opening hours. The supermarket is likely to need A. A longer supply chain, B. Fewer staff, C. Lower quality products, or D. Reliable suppliers. Any business is going to need reliable suppliers. When this paper was actually sat, lots of people put down A as their option, a longer supply chain. Now, a longer supply chain could actually make problems of getting products to the business and the end customer harder. So a longer supply chain is rarely a good idea. A manufacturer makes chocolate bars. All of the chocolate bars are passed through a machine to check for production mistakes before being boxed. This is an example of A. Product development, B. Product recall, C. Quality assurance, or D. Quality control. Checking products at the end of the manufacturing process before they are put in the box to be shipped off is quality control. If they were checked at every stage of the production line, then that would be quality assurance. Coconut Life uses e-commerce to sell its range of innovative coconut products. Which of the following will not improve customer engagement? Training staff on the benefit of coconuts, only selling products that have been certified as organic, sending carefully worded personalized emails to interested customers, sending text messages to all previous customers about the benefits of coconut oil. Customer engagement is all about building relationships and communication with your customers. By training your staff, they're going to be able to communicate and impart information which could improve engagement. Carefully worded, personalized emails to interested customers is just going to increase the level of engagement. They're already interested in your products, so you just need to develop that a little bit further. Sending text messages to previous customers about the benefits of coconut oil is also going to improve customer engagement. They are previous customers, they have a level of engagement already, so it is just going to build upon that. Only selling products that have been certified as organic is a first step. They're not doing anything with that yet. They would need to communicate that for it to be able to improve customer engagement. Falling levels of consumer income have caused a car dealership to experience a significant reduction in retail sales. Which of the following actions should the car dealership take to help increase its sales during a period of falling consumer income? Should it advertise less, offer price reductions, reduce customer engagement, or reduce its costs? Now this question, on the face of it, looks more like a marketing question. But if you think about it, we're talking about dealing with customers, the sales process and customer service. So, incomes are falling. If they advertise less, that would mean less customers would see their products. Not a good plan if their sales going down as well. Reducing in customer engagement would mean they're having less communication with potential customers. If you're having less communication, you're not going to make a sale. Reducing its costs could help deal with maintaining profit levels, but it won't deal with seeing a reduction in sales. Reducing prices will help sales pick up. Customers' incomes are less, they have less money to spend. They might still want a car, but they cannot afford the car prices as they were. By reducing the car prices in line with reduced incomes might help sales be maintained. Let's move on to section B, which is all about case study based questions. If you've watched the other videos, you will know that case study based questions could range from 1 mark up to 9 marks. If you have a case study, it's always a good idea to use it. Always be aware of what the question is asking. Is it asking about the impact on the company, or is it asking about the impact on a different stakeholder group? Or is it just a general question where you don't actually need to think about the case study at all? I just want to reinforce what I said. If there is a case study, you're not going to lose anything by trying to make sure all your answers link to it, even if it's asking a general question. Okay, Costa Coffee is a British multinational coffee shop owned by Coca-Cola. It is the second largest coffee house chain in the world behind Starbucks and the largest in the UK. It has over 2,100 branches in the UK and over 1,200 branches in the rest of the world, including Dubai, China and Poland. Costa Coffee has recently opened a new branch in Welshpool. It is located in the town centre on the high street near lots of other businesses, including offices and shops. There were only 2 other coffee shops in the town before they opened. Costa Coffee takes ethics very seriously, and it has switched to environmentally friendly coffee beans to make sure its supply chain is more sustainable. Now, all its stores worldwide use beans from the Rainforest Alliance certified suppliers who meet ethical and environmental standards for the sustainable supply of coffee beans. In order to be successful, Costa Coffee sells a wide range of products and constantly invests in updating this product range as well as refurbishing its shops. Recently, it has invested heavily in updating its computer software to assist its many functional areas such as finance. So the first question is, explain one impact on Costa Coffee employees of the business investing in updating computer software. Okay, there is a knowledge mark, which means you to identify the impact of computer technology, and an application mark where you need to focus on Costa Coffee employees. If you talked about Costa Coffee, you wouldn't get that second mark. It needs to be about employees specifically. Stop the video, write your answer, and then restart the video and check how you did. Right, so let's have a look at the mark scheme. In the knowledge area, you're supposed to be identifying the impact. So it's the knowledge of the impact of computer software. Now, in theory, computer software should be more efficient, quicker, easier to use. In theory. However, with that, there's going to be some training that people might need. Training and software both have costs. Maybe the new software and the training could motivate staff to work harder. So any of those shows knowledge of the impact of new software. Now, developing that in terms of application, there are lots of different areas you could go. The case study gave you a clue about how it's used in different functional areas, including finance. So I'm just going to focus on the finance element. And that is the 2 bullet points at the top of application. So that new software is going to mean it takes less time to do the jobs in finance. That would be enough to get you an application mark. The new software means things are more efficient. Do they need as many staff in the finance department? That could lead to job redundancies within that area. So let's look at the exemplar response at the bottom. One possible impact is that the new software may improve efficiency. That's the knowledge mark of a Costa Coffee employee, as they can produce financial data more quickly. You get the application mark by linking it to the employee producing financial data. Okay, so our next question is identify 2 factors that influence the location of a business. Again, we're talking about knowledge here, and it's just identifying 2 separate points about why and where you would locate a coffee shop. Stop the video, have a think about the different reasons, and then check your answers. Okay, so if we look on the left-hand side of the screen, you've got the cost of the rent of the location, transport, how close it is to customers, how close it is to potential workers, does it need to be close to raw materials, the government, competition and rivals, and then one about marketing reasons. If it was me, I'd be thinking about clues that you had from the case study to make sure you're definitely going to get the marks. The case study talks about how close customers are, different factories and shops. It also talks about other competition there, and there only being 2 coffee shops in Welshpool at the time. So those are the 2 I would pick. If you've watched the other videos and watched them in sequence, you might have heard me talk about scaffolding. Now, before a 7-mark question, you will have a 2-mark knowledge question, and that is what we've just seen. So you've been asked about knowledge of location, and now you're being asked to discuss the different factors that could have influenced Costa Coffee. So if you get 2 marks for application, there are no knowledge marks as such in this particular question. 2 separate points from the case study that relate to location specifically. You get 2 marks for analysing each of those points that you have made, the because reason, and then 3 marks for the evaluation part. Again, you should be quite confident now with these evaluation style questions, or the recommend questions. There is 1 mark for what is the most important factor. You don't need to say, I think. You just need to put the most important factor is, and then state it. You then go on to explain why it is the most important factor. And the 3rd mark in the AO3B element is for making sure that your reason is within the context of Costa Coffee's business. Stop the video, spend 7 minutes writing your answer, and then restart the video and check. Okay, so application in this case. You need to be identifying elements of Costa Coffee's choices. That could be the fact it's in a town centre, it's in a high street, there are other businesses there, other offices and other shops, which mean there could be lots of customers. There are only 2 other coffee shops there, so there's going to be less competition. In terms of your analysis, you build on one of those points. If there is low competition, then are they going to be able to get a lot of customers quite quickly? They're a large firm with lots of cash. That means a high street location, which is going to be quite expensive, might not be an issue. Footfall from the other shops and offices means that they've got a lot of potential customers close by. And then if they're in a town centre, you would hope that the infrastructure is good, the roads are good, so that stock can get to the shop quite quickly. Evaluation, what is the most important factor? Why is that the most important factor? And how does that fit in with Costa Coffee? So let's have a look at some exemplars. By locating in the town centre, there may be people walking past, and so Costa is likely to have more customers and make a profit. Well, they've identified that people are walking past because it's in a town centre. That is application. They've identified that that means there's going to be more customers, and that could help them make a profit. That is analysis. Now, a word of warning there. Try to avoid talking about profit unless you have talked about costs. But the idea that there's going to be people walking past, which means they're likely to have more customers, would be enough for analysis in that case. However, there are 2 other coffee shops already located there when Costa set up their shop. So that's application. This may make it difficult to get enough customers to make the shop profitable. Okay, so the application mark about the other shops and difficult enough to get enough customers to make the shop profitable is analysis. Yes, I've already mentioned I don't like talking about profit without talking about costs, but factoring in the idea that you need a lot of customers to make a shop viable is reasonable analysis. Overall, the number of potential customers is more important than the level of competition. So that's the first mark. They've decided what is the most important factor. when deciding on a suitable location because a coffee shop cannot compete at all without passing trade. Okay, so that's the reason, the because. Without customers, you're not going to be able to keep your business running. And then finally, so the high street is ideal. And that puts it back into the context of Costa opening up their shop in Welshpool. Just wanted to show you the marking grid for a 7 marker. If you have watched the other videos, you may have seen the marking grid for a 9 marker. They are very similar, but the 7 marker doesn't have the knowledge column in. If you can remember this basic structure, so get your application in, analyze each of those points, and then at the end, build up that simple evaluation. What is the most important thing? Why? And link it to the context. If you do that for every question that is asking you to discuss or evaluate, then you will be absolutely fine in achieving high level marks. Let's move on and look at another case study for Marks and Spencer's. Marks and Spencer's is one of the UK's leading retailers. It is committed to making every moment special for its customers through its high quality, own brand food, clothing and home products. M&S has an ethical programme called Plan A. This was relaunched in 2017 with 3 new objectives for 2025. Nourishing our well-being, including looking after staff and their needs, transforming local communities, including supporting staff who want to volunteer in charities, caring for the planet we share, including developing better recycling for packaging. In 2017, 60% of M&S's revenue came from the sale of food, which it sells through its 1,025 UK stores as well as through e-commerce on its website. The majority of food it sells comes from one of its 283 food factories located around the country. The Montana Bakery is one of these factories. It produces specialty breads, rolls, garlic breads and pizza bases for retailers and sandwich makers. The bakery has grown and has moved to a larger factory, where it is considering switching from batch production to flow production and automating some of the production. Identify one disadvantage to Marks and Spencer's of selling its food using e-commerce. So this is application because it's asking you for a disadvantage to Marks and Spencer's. When this was actually sat, lots of candidates actually didn't link it to Marks and Spencer's but to the customer. Be very aware in each question who you need to focus on. In this case, it is Marks and Spencer's. Stop the video, what's your answer, and then check. Okay, so I said lots of candidates lost marks for not focusing on Marks and Spencer's. Let's have a look at the bottom 3 bullet points first of all. So damage to reputation of the website, cost of the website security, cost of cyber attacks. Now all of those are clear links because it is talking about things that Marks and Spencer's will have to do. The top 3 bullet points can, depending upon how they're written, not gain marks. It needs to be clear to the examiner that you are talking about the company. So customers may choose not to purchase the food. Okay, that's linked to the company because they're not purchasing food, which means it's a negative for M&S. They're not getting the sales. Cost of transportation of the food. Now, that is quite vague. It's implied that the cost of transportation in this case is having to be bet by Marks and Spencer's, but I would genuinely avoid that because it is quite ambiguous. When you are buying products online, you could be talking about the cost of the product going to the consumer, which is a disadvantage of buying food or anything online. So when you get a question like this, focus on who are they asking you to talk about, and is your answer specific to that particular stakeholder, in this case Marks and Spencer's as the business. Analyze one reason why quality is important to Marks and Spencer's. Again, they've identified that we're talking about the business. So this is an analyze 3-mark question. There's 1 mark for understanding, and the understanding is what are the benefits of having quality goods. 1 mark for application. Now, the case study tends to focus on food. It does mention, however, other product areas. An AO3A analysis, what is the impact on Marks and Spencer's as a result of quality? Stop the video, have a go at answering the question, then check the mark scheme. So let's have a little look at the mark scheme. So understanding could focus on reputation, selling more products, reducing returns, building brand loyalty. Now you notice I skipped profit. I would advise you to avoid talking about profit unless you have got some information about costs or can think of nothing else. Application is going to be about high quality own brand food, clothing and home products. You could talk about its ethical program because waste is going to be increased if quality products aren't sold and returns happen and refunds have to go ahead. And you could talk about standards across the food factories. Analysis, increased costs from products that do not meet standards. Then you could develop that about impact on profits. You could talk about increased time from having to return orders. Time again is a cost, so that could be developed into talking about profits. Lost sales from unhappy customers, lost sales because of a developing poor reputation, and worst case scenario, costs from legal disputes. I suppose if somebody's bought an electrical product and they get a shock from it, that could lead to a court case. Or maybe if someone's got food poisoning from some dodgy, poor quality food, that could be a court case as well. Let's have a look at the exemplar. I don't think this is a particularly strong exemplar, and you could add to it by being more specific in terms of elements you pick from the case study. So ensuring quality is vital to Marks and Spencer's as it maintains reputation, because Marks and Spencer's has a reputation for high quality products. So the maintaining reputation gives the AO1 mark, and the application comes from high quality products, which is a bit weak, said you could put some examples in there. It directly links to demand and sales and company profits. Again, yes, that is true, it does, but that could have been built up. High quality products mean less returns, and a good reputation mean higher sales. That would have been a better way to answer that particular question. Let's have a look at an analyze 6-mark question. Now, they say analyze 1 advantage and 1 disadvantage to Montana Bakery of switching from batch production to flow production in the new factory. Sometimes they will split this into 2 3-mark questions. 1 question asking you to look at advantages, 1 question to look at disadvantages. This is no different. You need to think of this as 2 3-markers and build your answer as you would if it was a 3-marker. You just need to do it twice. So AO1B, understanding. You need to show understanding of an advantage, understanding of a disadvantage of switching from batch production to flow production. For application, you need to identify 2 pieces of context about baking from the case study that you can put in with your advantage or disadvantage. And then for your analysis marks, what is the impact, the advantage? What is the impact of the disadvantage on the bakery? Stop the video. You have 6 marks, 6 minutes to do this 6-mark question. Once you've finished, have a look at the mark scheme. Now, let's have a look at the understanding marks. So advantages, you could talk about it being quicker and cheaper, less workers needed, higher levels of productivity, improved quality control from moving to flow production. You would need to be careful about how you explain that. Disadvantages, cost of making the change. Flow production machinery is going to be very expensive. Production might have to stop, and if you stop flow production, that's it, stopped. Whereas if you're doing batch production, you stop at regular intervals to change what you are producing. Some people perceive flow production to be a lower quality than batch production. Again, you would need to think about the context. If you are just producing loaves of bread, is there any reason to think that a loaf of bread is going to be better quality if it's baked in batches as opposed to if it's baked in a long process of continual production? And then if you are investing in flow and replacing people with machines, then you're going to have to think about the cost of redundancies. Application, you need to think about Montana's industry. They are one of Marks and Spencer's factories. Therefore, they need to maintain quality. Will flow enable them to maintain that quality? Automating production is an application. It's mentioned in the case study. Specialty products, a discussion about what is produced. Can they be standardized? If you're making bread rolls, if you're making garlic bread, can't you just set up your factory production line to continue producing those goods? It's a larger factory. They could have several production lines running next to each other. Marks and Spencer's isn't the only customer, so maybe if the quality isn't good enough for Marks and Spencer's, it's good enough for other retailers. Or aside from that, the fact that it has other customers, flow production will enable its output to increase so it can provide for more customers. Analysis could be about the costs, could be about the potential to gain new customers, could be about being able to offer different products with its increased size of factory and new flow production methods. Could see Marks and Spencer's cancelling the contract. Could have an impact on the workforce. If they were bakers before who were involved in making different types of bread and now they are just attending a machine to make sure the machine keeps running, that is going to be demotivating. You could even lose staff. Let's have a look at the exemplar. So flow production would allow the Montana bakery to produce more products in the factory. That's your AO1 understanding mark. This would give Montana Bakery more breads which it can sell to Marks and Spencer's. So it's identified the products and identified who it's selling them to for application, which will increase their sales and may make the business more profit. That is analysis. The idea there for me, they'd get the mark in terms of talking about sales rather than profits. Now, before we move on to the next paragraph, I just want to focus on a bit of literacy there. So it talks about this would give Montana Bakery more breads which it can sell to M&S, which will then increase their sales. Now you've got 2 different companies in that sentence, Montana Bakery and Marks and Spencer's. I would advise you, instead of saying increase their sales and make the business more profitable, you say the company name again. So increase Montana Bakery's sales and make the business more profit. There's no confusion there. If an examiner is confused about who you're talking to, they might not give you benefit of the doubt and you might not get a mark. Okay, let's carry on. However, it is likely to make Montana Bakery's product less unique. So that is a bit of an understanding mark in relation to flow production, especially products like their specialty breads application. This might mean that Marks and Spencers do not order as many products from Montana Bakery, and that's the impact, that's the analysis part. We've come now to a recommend question, which is 3 marks. Recommend whether Montana Bakery should switch from batch production to flow production in the new factory. Now, if you have watched the other videos, you will have heard me talk about scaffolding, and I talked about it earlier in this video. We've just had a 6-mark question, which was basically 2 3-mark questions put together. OCR will do this. They will do an analyze, recommend flow of questions. Okay. Now, you've already analyzed the particular question, and this was about switching from batch to flow. Now they're wanting you to do the recommendation. Should Montana Bakery do it? It's basically a 9-mark question, but split down into 2 parts in this case, or sometimes 3 parts if it's a 3-3-3. Now you know how this works by now. AO3B evaluation, 1 mark for saying whether or not they should switch. Again, don't do the I think they should. No need. Just Montana Bakery should switch to flow production, or Montana Bakery should not switch to flow production. You then get 1 mark for explaining your answer, because, and then if you embed the context in your explanation, linking to the bakery market, then that will give you the 3rd mark for recommend. Stop the video, 3 minutes to write your answer, then come back and play for the mark scheme. So we've already talked about what you need to write down. 1 mark for whether or not they should switch, 1 mark for the reason, and 1 mark if you put that reason in context. So let's have a look at the exemplar. The Montana Bakery should switch to flow production. That's the 1st mark. They've made the decision. Because, indicating here we go, here's the explanation. Because the cost of savings it is likely to make are more important than any loss of perceived quality. That is the reason. Then we put a final sentence in to nail the justification mark within the context. In a competitive market such as bread, where people often buy the cheapest product. Okay, so they've mentioned bread. That's put it in context of a bakery. 3 easy marks. That's it for this particular video. Please make sure you have done all of your revision. This video alone is not going to cover the topic. You need to make sure you have completed the knowledge organisers. You need to make sure you have done the practice questions and maybe asked your teacher for any advice and guidance or support on knowledge which you are uncertain of. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on video 5.